for you. I'd like to welcome Amy there, the CEO, and also Rita, the PA. Steve is also a guest here today, and also to the speakers. So, first of all, apologies, and we have one from Dennis Beaver, who is presently overseas. So, can I have a movement seconder for Dennis? Apology.
Oh,
thank you. Public forum. I'd like to welcome Ken Allen. Congratulations on your new position, Ken. And if you'd like to just take the floor, you've got 5 minutes just to until spread later. By all means, yeah.
Hi, I'm Ken Allen. As Dave said, I'm the new chairperson of Whangamatā Harbour Care, and I just thank you for the opportunity to just introduce myself and also just to update you on where Harbour Care is at the moment. So I've been coming to Whangamatā for about 40 years, but it was mainly to be on holiday and visit my in-laws who live down here, retired down here. But my wife and 5 children, we really enjoyed coming here, but we were taking advantage of the amenities. And now that I've been retired down here for 3 years, I want to give something back, which is why I've stood as chair. Just a little bit of background, I spent about 40 years in social services in Auckland. First 20 years I was running NGOs that were involved in mental health and social work and counselling. And in the next 20 years I was working for the government and funding a variety of NGOs that did social work and counselling. So that's my background. In terms of Harbour Care, many of you will be aware that in the late 90s there was quite a lot of concern about mangrove expansion, and Whangamatā Harbour Care was formed in response to that. There was concern about loss of recreational amenity, the visual impact, the impact on the bird life who were being crowded out of the rushes and the wading areas, and so that's where Harbour Care sort of came from. It's had its ups and downs over the years. It's had successes. It's had frustrations and anger. But the current committee is committed to the fact that the regional council consent is the one that's in place, even though it's pretty much unworkable. And but we're not prepared to go against that in terms of supporting illegal activity. What we are prepared to do is work with the 2 councils about getting a new consent with more workable conditions. So that's where the discussions are currently going on in that space. But Harbour Care is more than mangroves. So pest control has also been a real issue for us. And currently Dave Beattie and Rizal Gould are heading that area of work. And we've got 300 traps, or around 300 traps and bait stations scattered around on trap lines around the harbour. Now, we've also recently developed backyard trapping with Predator Free New Zealand, and we've got about 50 families that are involved in backyard trapping. So in that area, we've probably got 70 or 80 people who are involved in various forms of trapping, and we're probably picking up about 100 rats a month, and stoats, which we always celebrate when we get stoats, possums, and then we have bait stations which take care of others that we can't count. But we're more than mangroves and pest control. So recently, Harbour Edge restoration has been a key issue for us, and the west end of the fitness trail and the Tukeri Drive project, both in conjunction with the council, and have seen non-natives removed, some landscaping, significant landscaping, planting of plants, and weeding, mulching, etc. So those projects continue, and we've probably had about 80 or 90 people involved in various stages in that area. And the other area that's being explored currently is the high tide wader roost. Now, we've got about 70 species of birds in and around Whangamatā, and the wading birds have only one area currently to rest up in when there's high tides, and that's down at the Beach Road Playground. That Beach Road Playground is disturbed all the time by walkers, people with dogs that are unrestrained. We're going to lose our waders if we don't work on that. So an artificial high tide roost in Pārtiki Bay is being explored currently, and John Adams is heading that piece of work for us. And finally, the Whangamatā cleanup. So Susan Watson is working with other key groups, the Surf Club, the Ocean Club, the Ramblers, the ratepayers to come up with a combined clean-up in October for the harbour, the estuary and the beach. So in terms of the organisation itself, we run on the smell of an oily rag. We are able, fortunately, to get funding currently for traps and bait, but the area we're struggling with is our administrative expenses, and that is in the area of public liability insurance and some software licenses. And in the past, that's been covered by the Community Board grant, but I understand that's not available at the moment. And so we will be keen to apply for discretionary funding for about $1,500 to cover that. So this community-wide initiative can be maintained. So we've got about 300 on our membership currently. And so we're always keen to get more members. We've got a strong committee, but I did bring along some membership forms, which for those of you that aren't members, you can sign up today. But, you know, no subscription, no need to put your hands in your pockets. So, you know, I'll pass it. We pass that around. Is that all right? We break any rules? But thank you for the opportunity to be here. And I look for, I gather we've been invited to a network meeting in the future, and we can discuss some of these things in greater detail.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ken. Any questions for Ken?
Ken, what are the software licenses you're talking about?
Lynn Norris, our secretaries, we're just transitioning, but they'll be in the Google licenses to allow us to share information. I'm not an expert in that area by any stretch, no. But I will find out in due course. Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies. Thanks, Ken. Graham. Good morning, Graham. Graham, going to talk to us on an update for the town square.
Oh, thank you, and thank you for the introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, so just a quick update on the town square. I guess you all know how passionate I am about that. So recently in June, Jenny covered the town square proposal, which created a lot of public interest again, some of them that didn't know about it. And as a consequence of that interest, we've received a reasonable amount of funding that has gone into the pool to initially kickstart the opportunity to create this town square that will be beneficial to the town. So what I'm really seeking is approval, please, to maybe put a graph on the side wall of the information centre so that we've got an opportunity to register funding or contributions from the public, and also an exploded perspective drawing, a clear perspective drawing of what the town square will look like so the public can get an understanding of that. So yeah, I guess with this contribution, possibly there's an opportunity here to negate any impact on ratepayers, and I'm happy to lead the drive for fundraising and contribution. So if there's an opportunity for approval to get a graph, I'm happy to initiate that, and the big perspective drawing so that people get a better understanding of what we're trying to achieve there. I'd appreciate that.
Right. Thank you, Graham. Any questions for Graham? Just as you're aware, we can't make any resolutions from today, but thank you for that, and we will discuss it and we will acknowledge your presence and also come back to you.
Graham, are you able to say how much donation you got?
500.
Sorry?
500.
$500.
Yeah.
And we're talking 250,000.
Yeah.
It's a start order.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Good morning, Amanda. Welcome to the meeting, and you're going to talk on behalf of Whangamatā Rape.
Yes, thank you for having me, and good morning to Community Board and councillors and PCDC that are here. Why is the Whangamatā Ratepayers Association here? We're planning a survey to seek residents and ratepayers' feedback on various issues facing the town, as well as priorities for the long-term plan. The speaking slot is to seek funding support from the Whangamatā Community Board on this matter. The objectives of the survey is to help TCDC to understand what is important to Whangamatā community, create a Whangamatā community cohesive culture, all stakeholders thinking on the same page, and through research of ratepayers, residents, businesses and community organisations. Just looking at TCDC's community board terms of reference states that the purpose of, which you probably all are aware, but to delegate authority and responsibility to the community board to effectively govern and determine local issues associated with the area. The role is to represent and advocate for the interest of its community, which is obviously what we are aiming to do too. To communicate with the community organisations and special interest groups within the community. This will help to achieve that too. The responsibilities, in addition to legislative role for the community board, are responsible for and accountable to council for assisting the organisation with consultation with local residents, ratepayers, iwi, community groups, other stakeholders on local issues, including input to the long-term plan and annual plan, which I'm sure you all understand, but this is just how we can align and help you with that. The annual plan 2023 and 4 supporting information consultation document, it is acknowledged from TCDC that we need to work together on solutions as to how our district can rebuild and recover so we can become more resilient. We hope the survey will help with that too. The 2023-24 year is year 3 of the 21-2031 long-term plan, and a lot has changed since it was adopted. There are different from our proposed annual plan. So the changes, COVID, Gabriel, reading that document, compared to what was set out in year 3 of the long-term plan. Your feedback is important as we develop our final plan. So again, the survey would help with that. The community plans, community engagement to help council understand what is important to the community, capture a shared vision and outline the key issues and projects facing that community over the next 10 years. The plans promote a clear focus for community board and committees to progress key issues within their areas. We've got our survey document again achieves that. So the Whangamatā Ratepayers Association handed out at the last informal meeting what our culture is going to be about, our aims, which obviously our primary objective is the same as the community board. So we see ourselves aligning with you and helping you and all stakeholders, councillors, TCD, with those decisions. And again, our aims all align with you to preserve, safeguard and promote the unique natural culture and environment of Whangamatā and enhance its social, cultural and economic well-being now and for generations to come. So we're all focused on that. The survey will help all stakeholders make decisions on advocating for interests of the community. Now, how do we do that? We produced a brief, which I will give to you. There's a 2-page brief of what we would propose to achieve out of the survey and the questions that set out the purpose of them. So I'll leave you with that brief. And that was only given to the Whangamatā Ratepayers Association last week, along with a draft Whangamatā Ratepayers Association, the survey. The survey's 14 pages. And as you'll see in the brief, what it covers. And so this was only produced last week we're tweaking it. Committee members are putting their input in it, so we're still obtaining that. As I say, it's only new. So the draft we'll hang on to for now. It's professionally done by an agency, and we will show you that once we have the final copy. Obviously, you will get a survey brief of how we came about that. So the costs, we were hoping to get some input from you, as you know and read out there, that this is to help you with your purpose along with us. As I said again, it's professionally produced and done. We propose to put it onto an A3 printed out onto A3. We've got quotes for printing up to 3,000 at this stage, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. It'll be an A3 piece of paper folded. And then the committee members, we will all have 50 each. There's 10 of us. We'll have a minimum of 500. It's proposed that it's a one-on-one survey, but we're happy for people to fill it in and drop it into outlets. We propose to be putting it into the Whangamatā News, and obviously only the distribution in the Whangamatā area. So it'll go into that. And the collation of the survey, we propose to have a proper research company put it together. So we are all divorced from it, and it is, independent company. So again, it's kept professional. So that's the what we're proposing to do. So I'll leave you with the brief, and again, that's a draft copy. It's nearly there, and we will again produce to you the survey questions for your input.
Do you have an estimate on that cost that you're talking about?
Approximately, probably about 5,000. We have the printing cost at the stage. We don't have the independent company cost, but we're obtaining that.
Yeah,
Any questions?
yeah, just a quick one. What was the timeframes again?
So we were hoping to have this printed by mid-August and completed by 6 weeks to get input from respondents. So end of September, which we will collate after that.
Right.
Hopefully not too long. If we have professional company has technology to put it together, we hope to have a professional report for you in October.
Can I ask a question? Eileen, do we have emails of the residents in the Whangamatā area?
That would be held through our brand database, which is subject to Privacy Act.
Sure, but I'm just wondering, often surveys sent directly to the emails of the individual.
Thank you, Gary, because I've actually had a meeting with Elaine and I asked her if we could access that database. That would be very helpful, and send the survey out.
It could be done through the council. Could we not
That
send
would be
it?
fantastic.
That's a discussion I'd have to hold with other resources.
Because we cut down the printing costs.
That would be fantastic. I did ask her that question when we met up, because I met with Elaine just to introduce her to what we were doing, and she did suggest the marketing arm of the council could help with this.
That was our comms team.
Thank you.
Thank you. There any other questions from them? Thank you for your time. Dan. Appreciate it. Back to you. Thank you. Yes, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda.
Any other persons that wish to speak? Right. Thank you very much for the public forum. There being no further speakers in the public forum, I resolve to receive the speakers. That the Whangamatā Community Board receives the names of speakers as speakers in public forum, including in table material and correspondence. Can I have a mover and a second, please?
Yeah, happy to move. I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favour, say aye.
Uh,
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is
minutes.
yeah. So any items not on the agenda that we wish to discuss?
Yeah, at some point, maybe the next meeting, I'd like to, on behalf of the library, bring up some concerns. Whether we've got time today, I don't know, but at another time, we need to have space to do that.
So through the chair, I'd suggest that we discuss those concerns of the library at our briefing meeting, or we can have a discussion after.
Yeah, I don't mind, as long as it's just briefly, a lot of maintenance issues and the place is falling apart and stuff. It needs to be.
Yeah, we'll have that discussion.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's operational, so we'll have that chat.
So in I don't think that's necessary to be received, it isn't for that one. Okay. Conflict of interest, are there any conflicts of interest that have to be notified, please? Minute confirmation from our last meeting. Obviously you've all read through it. Is there any comment in relation to the correctness of those minutes? That's for a move and seconded for the acceptance of those minutes. Please.
I move that. Happy to second.
Thank you. Move and seconded, all in favour, say aye. Thank you. The Whangamatā Community Board request for retained earnings. Do you wish to speak to this one?
That's Arlene's report, but I can
Oh, sorry.
speak to this.
So I take the report as being read. If you've got any questions, then I can answer any questions that you may have with the report.
Gary?
Yeah, I'd like a little discussion if I can, just to read around the suggested resolution. And I appreciate that the council is working hard to try and ensure that these funds are available for the swimming pool project. However, and if I look at the suggested resolutions in 3, number 2 recommends the council that it approves the 242,000 for the swimming pool retained earnings to be paid to the Whangamatā Community Swimming Pool Committee during the 23-24 year. And that was a little bit of a concern to me because there were some tight lines that the community swimming pool committee is trying to ensure that the application goes forward to meet a deadline. And I was looking to try and firm up that little bit of date around that. And maybe if whoever wrote this could have a look at that and see if we could add something to the end of it to tie it down a little bit closer to September or August or whatever. Those financial retained earnings, are they internal audit or external audit?
Through the chair, we've got the finance general manager online, Donna Holmes, so she'll be able to answer that question for you, Mr. Wolfen.
Good morning. Good morning, board. I'm sorry, Terry, could you please repeat your question? I'm understanding you want the recommendation firmed up more. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it just says it can be paid out during the 23-24 year. And we know that the swimming pool's got a deadline in September. It's trying to achieve it. So we're just wondering if we could, and we understand that we're working hard to try and achieve that. But I was worried, first of all, is this an internal audit for the retained earnings or an external audit that you have to go through to finalise these retained earnings?
No, it's not. It's nothing really to do with audit. It's more to do with us actually finalising our year-end processes. So the finance are working through that at the moment, and all things going according to plan, that should be finalised by the end of August, beginning of September. And then once that's finalised, then obviously the whole thing is subject to audit. But our actual closing retained earnings balance, yeah, it has to be finalised before we can actually build our annual report.
Right. So without that external audit request, we're just looking to firm up that date. It's there to say during the 23-24 year, and we can move it to say confirmed by the end of August or early September or something like that, just to give comfort that the application made by the swimming pool group can meet that deadline.
Yeah, so we can do that, but again, once again, it's also subject to what things that may happen between now and then. I mean, all things going to plan, according to plan, that is when it will be finalised. So as long as the words were around it being, expected to be or anticipated to be or something like that.
Yeah, you've got the word subject to the amount being available in the Whangamatā retained earnings following full disclosure in the 23-24 financial year. They're comfortable with that?
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yep.
so we just tie it down to a date, say by September 2020.
Don and Neil Evans, is there any reason why it would have to be subject to it being there? Because if it's been rated, it is there.
Well, to be honest, to be honest, I don't think you do need that level of commitment there in the resolution, because we have already said that that we know now that basically from our soft close that we're very confident that the money is there. So I don't, but if you want that extra wording to make it clearer, I'm okay with that as well.
Thank you, Don. Okay.
Through the chair, Kelly, I don't know if you want to put the resolution up, but what I heard was that we were adding to the end of the sentence. So it will say 2022-23 financial year, which is expected by the 1st of September 2023.
Yeah, well, I think we just want to take out it says the earnings that we pay to the Whangamatā Community Board Committee, full stop, subject to the amount being available to the Whangamatā retained earnings for disclosure in 2024 financial year by September 2024.
But we don't need it. We don't need subject to it being available.
No, actually, yeah, well, that's right. Just being available. Okay, so we'll take out the during the 2024, and then just the amount will be available to the Whangamatā from the Whangamatā retained earnings by September 2024.
Or 23?
23. Well done. A year ahead of us.
Yeah.
Through the chair, I think you still need that subject to available, and there it's not confirmed yet, because otherwise you're saying that there's no point for the rest of having the remaining bit in that resolution.
Okay, subject available for the 1st September date. Okay. Yeah, I can put that. Yeah. I think we're trying to just tidy it up a bit so it's meaningful to meet what we think is happening outside that.
So I still don't understand it. Why is it subject to it being available? It is available. It's been rated. So why isn't it available? Well, why does it need that extra wording? I don't understand that.
It needs that extra wording because it was available in the 22-23 financial year. That's when it was rated for. It wasn't used in the year in which it was rated for. So what happens at close of year end, all the basically unders and overs, so all the unbudgeted, if anything was budgeted and not spent, or basically rated and not spent, goes into the Whangamatā retained earnings account. And at year end, there is a wash up between what for the local works and services rate, what was funded by that, is if there was unders and overs within those locally funded activities, that they have to be paid from somewhere. So that's where they get paid from. And then whatever's left goes into retained earnings. It's not a given that the retained earnings will be there at year end.
So are you saying that money could have been spent on something else?
The money, no, what I'm saying is the money, it says there's always a possibility that the money will be needed to fund something else that has been spent. So it wasn't rated specific, so it was rated through the local works and services rate, the Whangamatā local works and services rate, which is a rate that funds all the local works and services activity, not just for the pool.
I thought the swimming pool was a separate rated thing, Terry.
There was an understanding there, but apparently when in the system, they were put it through that system. If we did it again, we could tie it into a particular project only, but it actually wasn't done that way.
Just through the chair, that's not totally correct. So what you're talking about is a targeted rate. We would not be having a specific targeted rate for something like this. Like there's a lot to be able to put a targeted rate in. There's a whole lot of work, a lot of consultation. It's very expensive. And there's a process of almost 6 months to a year before you can even get that rate in. So the way that this was funded was the way everything else is funded through in Whangamatā, every other project, which is through the local works and services targeted rate.
Yeah, but Donna understood that if we did it again, we could make a reserve or some fund that could be set aside for that particular project. We could look at it in a different light.
Well, that would be a discussion at that time, but again, there's a cost to that. And so there's a cost versus the benefit as well of doing anything like that. I mean, to me, this was the best way of doing it. And as what we've said in the report and what we've also given, we've given our assurance that council is backing this, and with the retained earnings that are there, we will have the money there to fund it. I just don't want to make in a resolution anything that specifically says that without going through the year-end processes, because there can be unforeseen things that happen between now and then. So I just want to make it clear that council is supporting this project, and it's our best endeavours that we will have that funding there.
So where did we get to with the resolution?
The resolution.
Did you read that? Against the council, the president.
Don't read it.
Committee during the adopted.
And so do you want me to read that out loud, Trevor?
I can read that now.
I can read that.
Yeah.
It recommends to council that it approves 242,000 from the Whangamatā retained earnings to be paid to the Whangamatā Community Swimming Pool Committee during the 23-24 year, subject to the amount being available by early September 2023. Recommends to council that it confirms a delegation to the chief executive to update the funding agreement for the remaining 22-23 milestones to be delivered within the 23-24 financial year, and work with the pool committee if milestones need to be amended.
Thank you.
I'm comfortable. I think we've got that feeling that this is going to move forward. So I'm happy to move that.
You've heard the amended resolution. All in favour, can I have a mover and seconder first, please? I'll move it. Move. Seconder.
I suppose it's the best we're going to get. I'd prefer one of the rural community board people to be a seconder. There would be blood in the streets if it didn't happen.
Yeah, I still don't understand that if the milestones had been reached in that last year, that money would have been paid because it was there. So how can it disappear? I think the subject to is still being woolly.
I think we should have confidence that council has given us some assurance it's going to be there. I think we're just walking through.
So what's the hesitation?
Well, because there's
So where could it go?
I'm not saying it can go anywhere. I'm just saying there's procedural thing they have to follow.
Yeah.
So
Didn't you say it has to be audited or go through an audit team?
no.
So the chair, Donna's just clarified that process.
Yeah. I don't like it, but if it's the best we can do, yeah.
Yeah, through the chair, I think the fact that it was in addition to an existing budget rather than being its own specific budget reserved for that purpose is the difference.
So can I have a seconder for it? Sorry. Sorry, Mayor Lynn, I understand you got your hand up.
Thank you, Dave, and through the chair. Look, I just wanted to clarify two things. First of all, this is a very, very good result that councillors and council staff and Donna and Dean and Eileen have worked very, very hard to achieve. I think it's worth understanding as a community board that the original way that this was put together was an attempt to take a complicated process and boil it down to 2 sentences in the LTP.
He's put himself on mute.
Sorry, we've lost you.
I'm sorry, I have no idea why that happened. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
So this was a complicated process that was boiled down to 2 sentences in the LTP last year, or the last LTP, sorry. And it was an attempt to find a good solution, and we have that good solution now, but it's come at the cost of taking it through a process that the staff have had to apply to make sure that we fulfill our obligations to ratepayers. And just the other comment that I would make is that we've really tried hard to make sure that this funding happens, but the second set of milestones were not met. And that's no fault of the Whangamatā Paul or Rob and his team. The milestones were not met within the time frame, which meant that council had to go back and find another pathway through, which has been done. We were not able to do a targeted rate for the pool, and that's a bit of a lesson learned from that. And as Donna's already explained to you, council doesn't have the option to do a targeted rate for a specific project like this without going through a very, very complicated consultation process. So this is a good result. This will be something that will benefit the community. It's a good result, and I think Donna and her team should be congratulated. And yeah, it's going to have a good outcome for the community. That was the only comments from me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Melanie.
Did you want to?
It's been moved and I will second the motion so that it passes from there. So all in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carry. The next item is page 31, which is the 101 Lindsay Road business case. And are you going to fix this?
So I'll take the report as being read. Elected members, are there any questions?
Yes, through the chair, if I can discuss this, it needs some discussion. It does ask for the amount of $10,500 towards the 101 Lindsay Road business court case with Whangamatā Community Board discretionary budget. I actually have been away for a while and I came to last and I just read that and I thought that was not what I remember. So I had a look at the quote through Michelle and it was $24,500 was the quote. So in discussions with Michelle's group, which is the Community Services Trust, I suggested that we would bring to the table a suggestion that we would pay $4,500 as the community board's fair share, and they would pick up any difference. This morning, I spoke with Eileen, and apparently there is a clause within that contract that allow for extras. Is that right?
That's correct.
One of those extras.
So that they were disbursements of 4% disbursements, travel and accommodation costs to attend meetings, which were not part of the 24.5 days.
And what could that extend that contract price
It
up to?
could extend up to 31,000.
31,000. So based on that new knowledge, I would still like to recommend to the committee board that we pay the $4,500 and at any shortfall, Community Services Trust said that they would pick up, not knowing what that final figure is yet, and they've agreed to do that. So I would like to table that as a for consideration for the board to make some. And that was based really around the fact that a lot of our discretionary fund had been reduced this year in retained earnings, and the fact that the Community Services Trust is keen to support this at 100%. So,
thank you. Any further discussion?
I'd have some discussion. I'd be interested to know what our process is going to be around applying for discretionary fund we've got a proposal here for 4,500. We've had 2 public speakers today. I wanted some input from the discretionary fund. Is it first come, first served? Or how are we going to work our way through the limited amount of money that we did this year?
I think we got $47,000 because we combined the contestable funds with the discretionary fund this year, and it was half.
Yeah.
So that gave us a certain amount of money that that the community board could decide on its own right without applications on where that money should go. And we thought that was a better way of doing it for the 1 year only. So,
And I don't have any problem with that, but how do we make sure that we take account of all the applications which may come for us, or is it, as I said before, first and best rest?
Dean, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, through the chair, just a correction that was emailed out. So the first paragraph after option 1 reads that the discretionary budget is 47,500. So that's an error. It's 40,000 for Whangamatā. Apologies, but that was the amount for another board. So 40,000 is your amount. And also carrying on that same paragraph, the figure of 30,000 should have read 29,500.
so that added together those totals. And what's so 40,000 was the 2 retained earnings and discretionary?
Yep.
All right. What's the other one? 29? What's that?
So 29,500 would be what was left, the proposed 10,500.
Ah, yeah, but it was not on.
Yeah.
So so it's $40,000, so if the board are approving 4.5, then your balance would be
35, but
So the amount we paid to Poetry was last year, was it?
yes.
Okay.
So I don't know if I've answered your question, Mark, but I think it's up to the board's discretion this year to look at applications and decide at the board's discretion where that money goes.
So
And it's not applications.
No, I get that, but there are a number of activities which we will know will be coming forward, which we will maybe want to make some input to, some financial input to. And so I suggest that we should know what they are, or at least have our own format of what they are, rather than just doing it piecemeal as applications turn up like this.
Yeah, I think this has been one of our key projects, so we're just trying to support that. It's not just like an annual thing. This is a one-off type project we're trying to get across the line. So it's coming a bit earlier, really. These other ones, we will sit around the table, I think, and agree that where the money should go. We're thinking about harbour care and thinking about Whangamatā and the arts collective.
Yeah, there are fair few. It's going to show up a discretionary fund.
So,
And we didn't want contested grants.
there was 126, I think, last year.
so just through the chair, so the discretionary grant, so the board agreed that the process would still stay the same as in previous years, where community groups apply for a discretionary grant and a report is brought to the board for the board to consider that application. So that will still happen. So with these requests here, with this 4,500 though, the board can actually recommend now or approve now for 4.5, and that will be paid out. But with the other community groups that have presented in the public forum, they will actually formally request a grant from the board, and it will come to you in the form of a report with all their details, the reasons why, how much they're asking for, and it will be up to the board to consider that request and either approve their request, decline their request, or part approve. So it will be totally up to the board.
And it'll be thinner than Marmite.
Well, that's exactly the point I'm making.
Yeah.
Sure, but this has been reduced quite dramatically.
And through the chair, at the last community board's informal networking session, there was an early discussion on how to prioritise discretionary grant, but not all members were there on the day. And so the outcome of that very early discussion was that the swimming pool matter needed to be prioritised first and foremost, followed by 101 Lindsay Road. And then there was a capture of what we understand will be coming as a a third tier of considerations, but we unfortunately we weren't able to determine the exact process the board would like to use.
Would you mind putting the resolution, please? The resolution is that we received 101.08 Whangamatā feasibility study and business case report dated the 6th of July 2023. And also that we approve the amount of $4,500 towards 101.08 Whangamatā's business case through the Whangamatā Community Board discretionary budget. But I have a mover and a second for that.
I'll move.
I'm happy to say.
Thank you. Moving and seconded. All in favour, say aye. Against?
Through the chair, I'd just like to say, first of all, appreciation to the council for coming up with the $20,000 support in this case.
Sure.
And the report, which is very positive, and hopefully when it goes to council, gets support. So thank you very much, and also Community Service Trust for this.
Next item on the agenda is page 89, which is item 2.3, which is the request to retain community board grants for the Whangamatā Library and for the Whangamatā Group.
Paper would have been read. Do you have any questions?
There's no questions that ask for a movement and second. Please.
Well, actually, can I just have one question about the council policy on, like for the Scout Group, does that land that that building's on is owned by council, so it rates itself?
Yes, so part of their lease, they have a lease, the Scout Group have a lease on the council land.
But but they pay rates on that. But why does the council rate itself?
That is one of the clauses that are in the lease, that they pay the rates.
No, not just for Scout, but why does the council rate itself for its own land?
I can't answer that question, sorry.
Does anyone know that?
The chair, no, not in any confidence. So what we would do is seek some advice from finance. I think they've left now. We've been.
It's all right. I was just kind of curious. It just seems a bit of double handling that you rate yourself and then pay yourself.
Through the chair, if I can, I agree with you. It does seem like that double handling and bureaucracy taking over there. They pay, I think, a $350 a year. Is that everybody pays who's on council land and a volunteer group? So rating it does seem an unusual added cost for some reason, because they come back to us for the money to give back to them, to give back to us, to go over the hill. Anyway, something to raise or something.
So can I have a mover and seconder, please, for the retainment of those grants?
Yeah, I'll move it. I think it.
Moved and seconded, all in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Move on to item 3.1, page 93. Morning, Bruce.
Good morning, board.
Bruce, you going to speak to this CapEx?
Yes, yeah, I can do that. Yep, no problems. So good morning. So this report, I'm presenting this report this meeting. It's the first report of the financial year. So it looks a little bit different to what you might be used to from previous reports through the year. So obviously the report sets out under the CapEx. It just gives you a list of the projects in Whangamatā, gives you a brief summary of the scope, and then gives you the financial for that project for the year. Obviously from next meeting onwards, we'll have more information in there around budget, spend to date, and a RAG status, red, amber, green, along with comments about how things are progressing. So yeah, happy to take any questions on that. The other point I'd note is that board members may be aware that Project Delivery Manager Andrew Bowden has retired, and so that's why you have to put up with me today presenting this. Normally it would be that role. So we're actively recruiting at the moment to to replace that, to replace Andrew. So yeah, like I say, happy to take any questions. The operational detail in the second half of the report, I'll probably lean or look to Eileen to answer any of those questions. But yeah, happy to take any questions from the board.
Thank you, Bruce. Any questions for Bruce?
Oh, I do have a question around street lighting, which is a real controversial issue around town here, but who looks after the street lighting? Is it a council operational thing, or you lease that out to contract that out to somebody else? But the question really is that there are sections of roads such as Ocean Road where the street lights have been off for some time, and there's sections of Rangi Ave where the lights have been on, are on all day and all night.
Yeah.
So what's the process about putting a request for service on?
Yes, so good question through the chair. So the streetlights operations and maintenance is done by our contractors. So that's by our roading contractor, Ventia, and they use a subcontractor that does that work. The issue that you're referring to, unfortunately, is usually a PowerCo issue. And so the way it's set up, they have automatic timers that turn the lights on and off, depending on the time of year, and also sometimes they have like a light sensor, so if it's really bad weather, then they'll turn on a little bit earlier. So if lights are not turning on in a whole section, like a street, or if they're staying on, then that's a power issue, and often they have issues around fuses and stuff. So what we normally say to our customers is call an RFS through or load an RFS, and then our customer services team will direct that onto PowerCo. But it does take quite a while often to get those resolved, and that's not unique to Whangamatā by any stretch. So it is a bit of a challenge, because everyone, our customers often just think it's a council issue and that we should just be able to resolve it, but unfortunately it's not. So yeah, don't know if that answers your question.
It does. I guess we just pay the power bill as well, but anyway.
Yeah, so we don't pay the power if the lights are staying on. That's a good point, which I should have mentioned. If the lights are staying on, we're not paying for that power. So we pay for power for like the defined periods, like the time it's based on hours. And so when they're sitting on all day, which obviously is frustrating and not a good look for our customers, we're not paying. No, our customers aren't paying for that power. So yeah.
Cool. Okay, thank you.
Bruce, just one question. I understand that there's 4 companies that the lighting goes through besides Ventia, besides PowerCo. There's a contract, I think it's McPherson or something like that, and somebody else. Could it not be streamlined so people get very frustrated when they put in complaints, particularly on Otahu Road? That whole block there is constantly going out at night, and they try for it, and it just tends that it goes on for weeks and weeks before anything's done. I mean, they gave updates for people, but when it's going through 4 companies, it seems like it's breaking down somewhere along the line.
Yeah, so through the chair, I hear what you're saying. Normally it's not too bad, because someone will obviously call our customer service team, and if they know that it's a whole street out, then normally our customer service team would send it straight to PowerCo, so it wouldn't be going via all the other contractors. If it's not so clear and someone says one light is out, then that might go to Ventia, and then they'll have a look at it, and then they'll come back to our customer services team and say, no, look, it's a whole street. We've checked it. It's a PowerCo issue, and then it would go on to PowerCo. I'm not sure. We have looked at it in the past. We have run it different ways. We did used to run direct with a number of different contracts. So we had all the contracts with the smaller providers around streetlights. But when we went through and re-looked at things a number of years ago now, and we packaged it all up into one contract, which is actually more efficient from an operational perspective, and was cheaper, and we believe better outcomes. But there is always that sore point and that challenge between the power supplier supplying the power and the switching, and us supplying the poles and managing the actual LED bulbs and all that stuff. So yeah, I don't have a good answer for you. Sorry, Dave.
No, I appreciate it, but in your remark about a street being out, in this occasion, and commonly, you'd have 25 streets out with the entire block from down there, and that's a constant frustration to people.
Yeah, that is frustrating. I mean, the only thing I could suggest is if people are loading RFSs and it's taking a long time, is and they're getting hold of board members, like I know they will do, to complain, is I'm happy for you to kind of come through to me, and then I can see if I can expedite it with the power companies and try and provide a bit more pressure and a bit more urgency to it. So more than happy to try and see if I can do that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Dave, through you, Dave. Bruce Neil Evans. I see that in terms of the CapEx work program, there's nothing there for replacement of the Whangamatā library roof. Is that in another year's plan, or is it not in the plan as yet?
Of the, sorry, through the chair, was that library roof, did you say?
Yeah, the roof, yeah, because it leaks.
Yeah. Okay, that could be, so again, I might not have the answer for that one, unfortunately. That could be through a property budget, which is managed by John Muston, our property manager. So I'm not 100% sure on that, but often those types of situations, it'll be a building issue, and so that would go through John's team. But I'm happy to follow up with John and see if I can get an answer, and we get that back to Eileen.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Thank you.
Just through the chair. Bruce, yeah, I have had communications with Paul Wilson on that. The roof of the whole building needs to be done, and they're just quotes at the moment for that replacement.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thanks, Eileen.
Thank you for that. Right, any other?
One more.
Sure.
Through the chair again, the stormwater upgrade project. Is it sort of been discussed with the action group here in Whangamatā, or is that already been something that's been sort of planned ahead of time and separate to what they've been talking about?
So, so through the chair, we have been working through the community stakeholder group. We've had a number of workshops. I attended the first 2 workshops. I've kind of been pretty comfortable and happy that we're moving forward in the right direction. So I've stepped back and leaving that to Mo, our infrastructure manager, and Brett Houston, our water services manager. But I know they're still meeting with that group, and they're still progressing that project. Now, obviously, those things, they do take a reasonable amount of time. Things are never as fast as what we might like, but we've had consultants and contractors involved as well. So I'm comfortable things are moving forward, but I don't have any kind of real detail to give you exactly where things are at. But the key thing for me is that we take that group and the community along with us as we move forwards with that project, and make sure that we're not just kind of bowling out there and doing stuff and no one's aware of what we're doing, because we know about it's such a high interest and such a critical project.
We had a meeting last Thursday of the group, and they informed us, and Hal came online and informed us that they were anticipating returning or putting their report to council last Friday, and it would not be able to be discussed until the next council meeting, or Brett was going to present it to council on the 29th of August. And the other report, which is a company like Nethere or some name like that, they are also a fair way down the line in having their report completed. And they have decided that they will have a meeting in mid-September, which will give a better idea of recommendations as to what's going on. But definitely the groups have been involved all the way through with that, and there's good communication between the groups.
Yeah. Yeah, I just add to that too. I think there is a requirement for the board to keep up to date with that, so we need some flow of information. But what Chair has said is correct. It's going to the 29th of August meeting, and I think it's a Hale report. Is that right, Bruce? It's not the Meta report; it's the Hale report.
It could be, through the chair, it could be HAL, which is Hydraulic Analysis Limited, as opposed to Metis, which is the engineering contractor. So there's a couple of those 2 parties, Metis and HAL, who are working through it. They're specialists in that field and working with us and with the group, as Councillor Walker said.
I can just add to that too, Bruce, the NIBCURB project that's on for this year, how it should mesh in with that stormwater project. To make sure you're not doing the curbs and areas which, you know, the curb channel would flow. So meshing that together, great. Understanding those when it comes up would be really important.
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing, through the chair, I'd note there, Councillor Walker, is my team will bring a report to your next board meeting regarding the NIBCURB and the prioritisation of the different sites. So from my kind of higher level understanding, we're basically looking at kind of the roads in the northern area. There's a little kind of cluster of roads, I think might be around Tuck Road in the northern kind of part of Whangamatā. And so from my team's perspective, they've got a whole lot of pricing busy at the moment, looking at, you know, estimates around how much they'll cost. They'll bring that information to the board next meeting, and then they'll get the feedback from yourselves around what your priorities are for that NIBCURB project, and then we can make sure we're meshing your priorities, the roading prices and priorities, as well as the stormwater stuff, as Councillor Walker said. And then from that stage, we'll have a package of what we're actually going to go out and do, and then we'll get out to the market and start progressing that.
Thank you.
I'd like to just ask a question of Bruce. Are any water tests done on the pond in Williamson Park? I asked that as it actually is for the first time in 30 years starting to smell a bit toxic.
Is it? Okay, through the chair. Yeah, I'm not sure if we do any tests on that. Often those kind of stormwater ponds don't require any tests in their resource consents. But what I'll do is, just to be doubly sure, I'll check with Brett and I'll come back and let Eileen know, and she can pass that back through the board to confirm whether we do take tests or not. It sounds like it might have a bit of organic matter rotting in the pond if it's starting to give off a bit of odour.
Well, of course, it flows and it eventually gets into the ocean anyhow.
Yes.
And that's the problem. And I think one of the things which concerning everyone with stormwater is what happens with the pond, what happens with stormwater. It's all a big question mark.
Sure.
So Bruce, if I just look at this CapEx program for this year, which is pretty light, we know we've gone through it. Does this include any of the rollover projects that weren't completed this year, or is that outside that? I'm just thinking around about the dump station and that where that fitted in.
Yeah.
Is that it's got on the sheet, but is it still part of a discussion that was supposed to be done?
Through the chair, the good question that is. No, so the carry forwards, which are rollovers from last year, as you say, they're not included in this list. So this is the list straight out of the annual plan. And as you've noted, it's a pretty succinct list, because obviously councils had to make quite a number of concessions around pulling budgets and pulling workloads back as a result of trying to deliver a lot of roading repairs. So there'll be a report which will go through to council in September. At the September meeting regarding the carry forwards from last year. And so what you'll see is there'll be a number of projects that will pop through and add onto this list for Whangamatā as a result of that report and approval by council. Obviously they consider it, and then they can make their decision about whether they approve it or not. The other thing is that obviously we're kind of busy at the moment, still just wrapping up final year end, to the end of 30 June. Which takes a while to get everything through. And so until we actually know all the final numbers, we don't know what those amounts are to carry forward. So September council meeting is when that'll happen.
Thank you.
Also, Terry, I see that it's on the action plan to be discussed there as well. Okay, thank you. So the suggested resolution is the Whangamatā Community Board CapEx work program be accepted. Can I have a move and a second for that, please? Thank you. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you, board.
Thank you very much, Bruce. The next one is the action plan.
Okay, I see it there.
Yeah. Eileen, do you want to talk to that or not?
Take it as read, and if the members have got any questions.
Any questions in relation to the action plan that we have there?
I just got a little one around Island View. I mean, it's really the continuation of doing something over where the kayaks are, and that area there, which is getting really disturbed and sand everywhere. So maybe that should go on the list for a discussion. It's not a big cost. It's just something to tidy up, and it would really improve that area around there, which is getting a lot of sand blown over the road.
Was actually a request that they use some of the crating that was left over from when they did the Peruvian camping area, but it seemed to be removed before that was done. But that would have been ideal to lay crating over it and then put a base so that at least, because it is getting really kicked up.
6 or 7 of those crates would have done the job, isn't it?
Sure.
Yeah, right.
Any other comments in relation to the action? All right, if there's no further comment, I ask for a seconder, but that we receive the action schedule as dated, and if I have a moving seconder, please.
Okay.
I'll second it. All in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Carried. The last one's the chairperson's report, that I'm sure you've looked through. Are there any comments or any additions to that report? Comment on? Nothing. All right,
Can I just comment on one?
sure.
Yeah, so we had a really good meeting with only amount of ratepayers, and we had a great turnout from the council and staff, etc. There was a concern that's risen that the people need to have a little bit more information around how the freedom camping policy works, and wondering if there's a little bit more communication going out to the public, because people are asking now for reviews. Go back through it, and we're saying, well, we had Brian there at the meeting saying, no, we've actually done the policy. It'll be 4 or 5 years before we do it again. So having clarification around that was communication to the public would stop the requests coming through for freedom camping.
Can I just raise a point? I did send a message to Brian. He hadn't got back to me, but my understanding now is horrifically so, that homeless people are exempt. And if we start getting out there, we could be opening up a can of worms. And I just wanted to confirm that with Brian. I sent that to him yesterday. But my understanding, there's been a recent decision that makes homeless people and people who do not acknowledge the law basically can go where the hell they like. And I don't want to get that out there. I think we better keep it pretty cool. But if that can be checked, because that's my understanding where it's now.
I was of the opinion, Gary, that was Papamoa, but I hadn't heard that it was occurring here.
Well, if it's the short answer.
Anything about this?
Through the chair, no, I wouldn't have the detail. Brian taken to be the right person to
I think I saw it's come through on the legal website that I have all these things that come through, and it's a bit scary.
Yeah,
because the short answer is I don't know what people are coming through with their concerns with freedom camping, but it's quite clear the door is closed on that, and
They need to be sure of that because it's coming through regularly. So,
sure.
yeah. Okay. I just want to mention that in your name.
Okay, thank you.
Perhaps a reminder in the Whangamatā news before summer, just.
Or even the TCDs who do a nice little thing in there would be good to put it.
It was suggested at the ratepayers meeting we had the other day that in fact, Brian does an article suggesting, and I spoke briefly with him about this morning, just setting out exactly what can be done, what can't be done, as a reassurance to other residents and from there. But I am aware of what you said, and that would be very frightening for people if we have it in this area. But definitely Papamoa's got it. I've seen it in writing.
Well, Brian was telling me about a particular person that camps frequently around here, but he doesn't acknowledge the law and all this other stuff. And there's a team of them out there, and I feel so sorry for start having to deal with it.
Well, I understand there's one down in Otahu Estuary that's put a bed in one of the trees and it's covered in plastic, and they're sleeping there down by the estuary at present. So
nothing surprises me.
Yeah. All right, so can I have a move and second for my report, please?
Will you move it, we'll see.
I move it.
Okay.
Thank you. All in favour, say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. That completes our business. People gone. Any other?
So do you want to stay? Do you want to say what?
Just close.
Just say you're aware, Kirsten. Gary, Kirsten's coming online.
Oh, sorry.
To update you.
Thanks, guys.
Hang on, I'll get it.
Thanks.
Very good.
Good morning, Kirsten.
Oh, can you take the forms on, please? Yeah, I'll take them. I'll take them. Here we go.